Army or Navy? Which one's Army? Marine. That's the men's department of the Navy, right? I'm still not sure.
What's that?
Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna step right out over here, if that's okay, because this is actually for both of y'all. If you wouldn't mind, would you mind holding the microphone for me, if you don't mind? Tonight is, as I understand, Mel told me that tonight is y'all's last night in a position of leadership in the Tea Party.
No.
Is that correct? Right. Well, we wanted to.
Brian Luke's prize, sorry.
You didn't tell me not to. You know, you didn't put a security classification on it. We wanted to give you a gift. This is a Spivey reproduction print of the state capitol, signed by our governor, Greg Abbott. And I wanted to give this to the two of y'all as a token of appreciation for all the hard work.
On a personal note, I want to say thank you to the Post for, during the whole library thing, that's all I'm going to call it, that was brutal. And I can't tell you the number of nights I was on the phone with sweet Melanie back here, who is a brave, courageous woman. And and getting very wise counsel from both of them, so how much I appreciate both of them and talking me off the ledge a few nights when I wanted to do and say things that I didn't have any business doing. So thank you both of you, and I love you both, and you know that I love you both. So my real announcement I have to make, because I stole this from Marty, is on the 5th of August, women, we are always working our little behinds off, but this is an opportunity for us to go down to Waco and celebrate. And I know it's a long drive down there, but I make it all the time. It's an hour and 45 minutes, and it's not that big a deal, because there is a big fun tea commemorating the 95th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which is women's right to vote. Brian? You're like a spring bud in the Constitution class. Sit down. I swear. Anyway, it's Wednesday, August 5th from 2 to 4. There are a lot of really fun things. We're going to have costumes from suffrage days all the way up to present day. Cecilia Abbott will be joining us. Our First Lady will be joining us. Congressman Flores' wife will be there. Congressman Williams' wife will be there. I'm going to model my dress from the inaugural. Woohoo, if I can still fit in it, because I've been doing a lot of stress eating the last couple weeks. As you can imagine. Had a wedding Saturday and the library. Because we do a lot of stress eating, Melly's going to fix that for me. So if you want to go to this, because it is invitation only, but it's really not. But they said that because there's some people they don't want to go, and so that's why. Call me. Just tell Reen or Dawn, and they know how to get a hold of me. They can give you my email address or cell phone. Yes, sir.
Do you have to ride a motorcycle to go?
No, they prefer you don't come to Waco with guns, knives, nunchucks, or motorcycles these days. That is Sheriff McMurray's least preferred mode of transportation is motorcycle. But if you want to come, it's really going to be a super fun day. It's from 2 to 4. It really will be, and it's no cost to you whatsoever. Senator Birdwell is footing the bill for the tables from Hood County. So anybody that wants to come, he'll just keep writing checks as long as we don't take it. We have a hot day. He's taking me out to dinner. I can see him.
We've got some gentlemen that have stepped out and are running for office, and Mike.
Once again, I'm Mike Lang, running for State Representative District 60. And I think there's somebody else here that's running now. Oh, 2 people now.
Yeah.
You want me to come talk for a minute, or sure. Okay? Sorry, this was actually planned. I wasn't like trying to weasel my way into
Give an hour.
No, I'm not that long.
He's on the clock, not to worry.
Okay, sorry. No, so I'm Matt Mills, and I announced this week that I'm running for county attorney. It's not influenced by anything in the last month. It's something I've been, no, I mean, seriously, I've been planning it.
Pinocchio's, man.
Well, I'll get to that in a second. I'm not really trying to make a campaign speech. I just want to talk about some stuff to inform y'all about what's going on, who I am, who she is, what the office does, and that kind of thing. So let me start with a trivia question. How long has it been since any of the 4 lawyer positions in Hood County has been contested on the ballot? So district attorney, district judge, county court at law judge. Those are the 4 lawyer positions. How long has it been since there's been a choice on your ballot in any of those positions?
At least 12 years.
14 years. Okay. And now, why is it that we don't get a lot of choices? Well, it's not like county commissioner where you can just get somebody who's 18 years old and can fog a mirror and lives in the precinct and hey, they can run. Dealing with the county attorney's office on a day-to-day basis. It's a beating, okay? It's very uncomfortable. So, I mean, I'm in the process of trying to get off the misdemeanor stuff now as a defense lawyer, so I'm not dealing with all that awkwardness. But anyway, you rarely have a contested race for those reasons. Why am I running? Well, 4 years ago, Stuart Neal said he was going to run. Some of y'all know him. And he started out the campaign, and I thought Stuart was great. He had great qualifications. He was a former assistant county attorney, former district attorney, city attorney, had every qualification. I was backing him. I wanted him to win. He dropped out at the 11th hour, and she got in uncontested. So that was disappointing. I thought about running when he dropped out, but everybody said, no, you're an idiot. She's already out there, and, you know, this is the last-minute thing. She's already got signs up. You're going to get creamed. So I said, no, I'm not going to do it. But I knew that there was going to be some issues dealing, in my opinion, with the office, and there have been. And a lot of the lawyers, some of them anyway, have come to me and said, hey, would you consider running? So one of them, I won't name his name, but he said, you know, you ought to think about running. So, and he said, you know what, she's really kind of a Democrat, you might want to check into that. So just for giggles, I did. And I went to the Tarrant County Elections Division where she used to live, and I got a copy of her voting record. And she voted in the Democratic primary while living there in 2008, 2004, 2002, and 1994 with no Republican votes. 2008, that was Hillary Clinton versus Obama. So I don't know who she voted for, probably Hillary, but whatever. To me, that was a problem, you know, not just kind of indicative of being liberal, but, you know, like it's not very genuine in my book to move here, switch parties, and then run as a Republican because we're a Republican county. So I thought, you know, that's a problem for me, and now I've got some ammunition, so if you want copies of this, I have them, you can take them. Or you can go to Tarrant County and get a certified record for free like I did. And the date on here is March the 6th when I went to Tarrant County. That was way before all the gay books and gay marriage and all that other stuff. Okay, so if you're wondering how long I've been thinking about it, it goes back before all that. Okay, now, since I announced, and I just kind of want to talk and clear the air about some stuff, and then I'll shut up. But, okay, so people say, well, but you're a libertarian. And I'll say, yes, I am. I'm a, well, little L, I'm getting to that. I'm a little L libertarian, which means I'm a Ron Paul Republican. Very libertarian-minded Republican. There's people in Congress like Thomas Massey, Justin Amash, and obviously Ron Paul was there. And I'm going to vote for Rand. Sorry, Ted Cruz people, but, you know. In the Texas House, there's people like Donald Huffines, who's a Ron Paul supporter, Jonathan Stickland, David Simpson. I mean, these are the people that I kind of identify with politically. So let me just tell you a couple things about libertarian, or my libertarianism, what it means and what it doesn't mean. What it doesn't mean is I'm not like a pro-abortion gay rights person. I'm very, very pro-life and for traditional marriage, and I'm a big Bible thumper. But foreign policy, we're going to disagree. So when Ed Roberts was here 2 months ago, that was not my cup of tea. Okay, but that's fine. Now the big thing that you're going to hear a lot about, that y'all can make up your mind however you want to, where it does kind of matter in the local race. Just like we learn in our history books that Prohibition didn't go real well, in my opinion, the drug war has not gone very well. We've spent a ton of money. We have 5% of the world's population and 20% of the incarcerated population, and we're the land of the free. To me, I think we should do something different. So if I were running for State House or Senate or whatever, I would propose some changes. To me, what makes the most sense is, tax it, regulate it, but then if you're doing it and you commit a burglary or a theft or whatever, then you can elevate the punishment if somebody's, on drugs. But to me, what we've done so far hasn't worked. We keep pouring money into it. And so that's going to be the criticism, okay? You're just this bleeding heart, whatever. That's kind of just lay it all out on the table, and that's kind of me, and that's the opponent, and these are your two choices. So, two quick things about the drug thing, and I'm almost done, okay? It's just misdemeanors, which is the county attorney's position, so that's possession, not delivery, of low-level quantities of marijuana, K2, and some prescription drugs. Any methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, that's all the DA, that's Rob Christian, that wouldn't be county attorney at all. Second thing is, if the law is the law, I'll enforce the law. So, it's not my job to change it or run for state rep. I'd probably get creamed, So, but, if the law is to prosecute people who smoke pot, then we'll prosecute pot smokers. I've been defending murderers and rapists and stuff, so that's a little harder than prosecuting pot smokers. So, anyway, just one quick thing and then I'm done. If you want to go find somebody else to run, do it. Please. The prosecutors are not going to run because half of them work for Lori, or they work next door to Lori where she used to work in the DA's office. So it's got to be somebody in private practice. Again, some of those are Democrats. Some of them are not interested. If you want to make the phone calls, great. Call. And so do two things. This will take you 20 minutes. Call all the lawyers in town and ask them, or just 3 of them, 4 of them. Ask them, who do you support between the 2 of us? And would you be willing to run yourself? Okay, and if there's a third person who wants to join, great. There's a better chance of getting a new county attorney. So go do that. And if you want to support my campaign, that would be great. And I have petitions and endorsement pages and all sorts of good stuff. And the bank is open. So anyway, that's the deal. So that's, just make up your own mind and make your own choice. And I'd appreciate any support.
I believe we have 2 gentlemen here that have got it on their mind to run for the city council. So we'll start right here with you.
Hello, my name is Phoenix Van Dale. I'm running for city council. I've been involved with you guys for a while. I've been a Republican delegate the last 2 state conventions. I ran unsuccessfully in 2013. I want to run this time because I believe that fighting for Granbury, improving tourism is what the city wants, and I want to be a voice for that on the city council.
Tony Mobley. I know many of you from around town. I'm a local financial advisor with Edward Jones. My office is right around the corner. My house, I literally walk here and to work every day. So I'm all in as far as the city of Granbury. I ran in 2013 as well, lost by a very slim margin in a runoff. And all I've done my whole life is run businesses, balance budgets, set payroll, and I think our city needs help with a lot of that.
I took mine off.
Okay. Well, as y'all know, Rita and I are stepping down tonight, and we've got a new president and a presidential advisor and a new vice president that will be taking place tonight, and we're tickled to death to have them. They're younger, smarter, more active. They're just great people, and we're really, really proud of them. What we're proud of also is our association with you guys. Over the years, we've become friends with all of you, and that's been most important because we consider you guys not only our friends, but our fellow patriots. And so it's been fun being president of the Tea Party, and it's been quite an honor to act in that capacity. So thank you very much.
Now, we're not going anywhere.
with our new leadership, and they're wonderful men. They're going to lead this Tea Party places it hasn't been, I guarantee you. Someone told me the other day, he said, you know what, the Tea Party needs to quit being so nice. You can't hear me? Someone said to me the other day, the Tea Party needs to quit being so nice. We have lots of problems, challenges, I like to call them challenges, in our community that needs to be looked at. And I'm hoping that with this new leadership that you all will really jump in and help them, because we need to make a difference in this community. We need to make a difference in who runs this community. And you all are so wonderful, and you're so smart, and you know, I just see big things happening, and we're going to be in there trying to do that too. But I'd like this time, if y'all don't know him, Dave's going to take my job. There you go. We have Jim Logan. He's going to be our new president. And if you all don't know Carla, you are really, really in for a little treat. Carla, this is right. So leave us in good hands, and we'll be here to help too. So here you go, Jim.
So there was two thoughts when I'm not very good at making this kind of transition things, because one of the things that stood out in my mind was, I don't know if everybody's familiar with Isaac Newton, but one of the things that he was famous for was discovering gravity. But he also said that what allowed him to see further was that he stood on the shoulders of giants. And that's kind of what I look at right now, is Don and Reen have created a wonderful organization. Carla and I came from Pearland on the south side of Houston, and when we were in the tea parties down there, Don and Reen Poe were known all the way down to Houston. So we're known statewide. So everybody knows who they are. They've made a huge impact on the Tea Party in terms of state politics and everything. So I just want to say, I can see further because now I stand on the shoulders of giants. And then along with that, Winston Churchill, never have so many owed so much to so few. So what I've seen from Don and Reen is they've given a lot of self-sacrifice over the years to grow this organization and make it really a strong organization and very well respected. So again, I just want to say thanks for all their efforts and everything that they've done, and I hope don't let you guys down. So there's a couple more announcements that we just wanted to kind of announce real quick. Is one, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the website. We're working on redoing the website a little bit, so I'll be sending out via email the link to the website, make sure everybody understands where that's at and can take a look at it, make it a little more interactive, a little more information on it. And then also, we have a Allen West presentation next week in Claiborne. And so if anybody's interested in going for that, I think some of the information's already gone out, but you can always stay after and ask and get you involved in that. And if you haven't heard Allen West speak before, it's a real pleasure. The gentleman's very smart and very, very conservative. So, and then with that, Dave, did you want to talk a little bit about wrap up on the county commissioners meeting that we had in terms of your impressions on how everything went and anything on that nature?
It was a disaster. No, I'll comment about it.
Okay, all right. And then Jan, where did you go, Jan? Last Thursday and Friday was the Christian Value Summit, so Jan was nice enough to prepare a little summary of that, but I thought if she could take a couple minutes and come up and just give a little overview for those that didn't attend.
I'm used to being a teacher, not using a microphone, but I'll try to make this work.
it's always been my habit to type up notes whenever I go to a conference, because you never knew who might want to have gone to that conference. And so Jim didn't know I was doing this, but I brought these in tonight. And I just want to read just a little bit about who was there. So if you see this next year, because we really only had 3 names on our sheet, and give you just maybe a line or 2 for each one. Bill Ledbetter was the Master of Ceremonies Thursday night. He was talking about original intent, interpretations of the Constitution are being replaced with humanism, political correctness. We know that. State Senator Brian Birdwell spoke. I love his opening line, politicians need to be good, be brief, and be gone. Jerry Maston, if you've not had the pleasure to meet Jerry, he is pastor of a friend of mine's church over in Eastland, the River of Life Church. I was very impressed with it when I met Jerry a couple of years ago. I went over and did some faux painting for him, and the more I see of him, the more I'm impressed with him. Galatians 5:1 was his topic. It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore, keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery. He also said, while asking for God's help does not make our task easy, he does intervene for those who seek his favor and his help. And Jerry is a warrior. And if we had every pastor in every church being a Jerry, oh my goodness. David Barton, many of you know him, the historian and author. I love my Founder's Bible. If y'all haven't gotten one, you need to get one of these things. They are an absolute treasure. And if nothing else, you will enjoy reading it, but someday our kids or grandkids may have to try to put this thing back together, and they better have a Founder's Bible sitting on their desk and refer to that in order to put this thing back together the way the founders intended. I'm just going to say there's so much in his speech, it's incredible that he referenced Sun Tzu, The Art of War, a Chinese military general, strategist, and philosopher, 544 BC to 496 BC, who said, if you know the enemy and you know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. The question is, do we know ourselves, let alone the enemy we face? And I think with this administration, the answer to that is a resounding no. There's so much more in his speech. I've given these notes to Jim, and he's going to scan them and put them online. So if you want to read more of them, there's only about 8 pages of them. So. Rafael Cruz, his text was Exodus 18, and it dovetailed with what Jim has been teaching us. We need to look for able men. This is from the Bible, so I'm reading it from the Bible. Able men that are capable, as Raphael said, don't stop electing the village idiot. Men such as fear God, obey his precepts, and have a moral code of conduct. Men of truth, look not at what they say, but what they do. Look at their record. And 4, men who hate covetousness, who resist the power and the control that government office offers. That's a tall order to find men that and women that can do that, but they are out there. We have Matt Staver from the Liberty Council. Basically said, read Chief Justice Roberts' dissent on the gay marriage case. It is scathing, and I know that Alito and Thomas and Scalia were right there with him. We had David Barton again that afternoon or that morning, and talking about the problems that that the founders faced, that we also face. We think that this is a new problem. It's not, and it's incredible to read the history there. Bob McEwen was a former congressman from Ohio's 6th District who was hilarious, by the way. He says America funds 85% of global evangelism. You start taking our tax dollar, increase our taxes, take away our tax exempt status on the churches. That's really going to impact people's pocketbooks, and there goes a lot of the world's evangelism. He talked about politics should be integrity plus character. And integrity is defined by performing the duty for which you were entrusted and implies a sense of morality. Morality is more than not doing what is wrong. You can sit on the couch and be moral. Character is doing what is right. You can't do wrong things while you're doing the right things, so focus on doing what's right. We had Dorothy Burton, who was from Duncanville. She had been on the city council. She told a wonderful story about Ronald Reagan. As a boy, someone offered to have a pair of shoes made for him, and the cobbler wanted to know if he wanted square toes or round toes. Couldn't make up his mind, couldn't make it. The cobbler asked several times. He finally said, come and pick up your shoes tomorrow. He picked them up. There was one with round toes and one with square toes, and he kept those shoes the rest of his life as a remembrance of the price of indecision. I urge you to read her papers, Liberation and the Politics of Justice, The New Norm. She is in the black community, and she said that while people say that Obama is a Muslim, he is not. He is with the United Church of Christ, which is black liberation theology, basically with a white face. So that is very problematic. Dan Fisher, Bring Back the Black Robe Regiment, wonderful, had the uniform on and so on. There is a time for all things, a time to preach and a time to pray, but there's also a time to fight, and that time has come now. And that is from John Muhlenberger, who was one of the Black Robe Regiment at the time of the Revolution. And in the movie The Patriot, the hero is told that he has done nothing for which he should be ashamed. He replies, I have done nothing, and for that I am ashamed. And so that was very moving if you were there for that. Dexter Sanders was a Florida evangelist, B2G, which stands for Back to God. I urge you to look at some of his videos online. He is a go-getter. Lawrence White, the Lutheran pastor, was an absolute delight, and he talked about politicians only fear certain groups, but they don't fear us. Only 40% of the evangelicals are registered to vote. Of that, only 40% actually do vote. So now you're down to 16%. Of that, only 40% vote for Christian values such as life, freedom, and family. As a result, only 6.4 vote for Christian values. No wonder they don't fear us, because we don't show up. And Jerry's theme is show up, stand up, and speak up. And if nothing else, start going to the city council meetings, the school board meetings, and these other meetings, and just sit there and let people know that, act like you're taking notes. It will drive them nuts, probably. Mark Gonzalez, a pastor from San Antonio, I just want to say one thing he said. He was talking about a lady who, I think he was the one that was talking about a lady who won in a town of 40,000 with only 35 votes. But anyway, every church, he was saying, should have a civics ministry along with that. If you don't have one at your church, get it started. I've already volunteered to be on ours if they'll get it started. And then we ended up with E.W. Jackson, who was a great-grandson of slaves from Virginia. He was trying to fire us up after all of this kind of depressing news. And he said, America is a providential nation. That's why men have been put into place by him throughout our history at the right time. We must work hard to find such men, but they are there. But like Moses, they may need some prodding.
So, and that's one of the things I want to try to stress as we go along, that one of the things that really came out loud and clear of Thursday and Friday is it's good to show up to meetings like this, but then what do you turn it into? And so that's the things is we're going to try to figure out different ways to get active and participate and really amplify the voice that you've got. Because one of the things that stood out with the county commissioners meeting was a lot of you showed up. And that really had an impact. Whether you believe it or not, it has an impact, a huge impact. Because those guys they're expecting 2 or 3 people to show up for the whole meeting. Over 100 showed up, so that's outside the norm. So, and when you start showing up and participating, all of a sudden things start to change. So they know that you're watching, and their attitude changes. So, one, for everybody that showed up, thank you very much. And then going forward, we're going to have a lot more ways for you guys to show up and participate and reach out and get these guys back in line with where they need to be. And with that, one last thing on, and then I'll turn it over to Dave. Every 2 weeks, I usually try to have what I call a Liberty Project work study group. And next week is going to be Allen West, so I'll probably push it off to the following week. But I'll also send out emails with that. If you guys would like to come, I'd more than love to have you. We talk about the 5,000-year leap, ways to be active. And it's kind of along the lines of Jan's civics lessons. So a lot of people don't understand their rights, and if they don't understand their rights, it's hard to push back against the political forces to make sure that they're protecting your rights. So in just the last session that we had, we talked about the checks and balances that are in the government. In our system of government, anybody have any idea roughly how many different checks and balances were set up in the federal government?
There's nothing left.
Yeah, none of them are in existence right now, but over time we've whittled away 18 separate checks and balances. And that's when you start talking to politicians. For example, when you go to town halls and you ask, for example, like Mike Conaway, what he's doing to stop this thing, and he says, well, we can't do anything. Well, there's certain well-defined powers that they have under the Constitution as checks and balances against administration. And to your point, they use none of them at this point. So once we're more educated and then we hold their feet to the fire, then we force them to start using those checks and balances again. Right now they don't use them because we don't really articulate them. Okay? So I will send out the information on that, and I would greatly love to have you guys participate. At the end, after Dave's done, I'm going to have Donna step up and talk a little bit about participation. She's been participating in the class, and she's really gotten more active on communicating with the representatives. So some things that she's learned, she's going to give some insight to you guys. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Eagle. I think most everybody knows him here. He does Eagle Mountain Farm Cheese here in Lipan, and he's going to explain how the government can even mess up making cheese.
PowerPoint presentation.
That goes with your email address, right?
There you go. First of all, I could not resist this. How many Hood County employees does it take to screw in a light bulb? Anybody got a guess? This is the annual put up the Christmas tree lights at the courthouse day, and I pulled in there for something, I don't remember what, but I went, what? I got to get my camera for this. There's at least 20, I think there's 2 behind the tree. So we got 20. It takes 20 to screw in a light bulb. Sorry, I couldn't resist that.
I like it.
All right, I'm going to do the best I can. Can you hear me without this, or is it better with this?
Without it now.
Good.
Better with it. We'll do all right for us. People are hard of hearing. Talk loud.
Before I get started, before I get started on my talk, which tonight is going to be the Constitution, the law, and making good cheese, I want to start with a little story here. This is a photograph of my grandmother. This is my Uncle Tommy. Can y'all see this at all?
A little bit.
This is my Aunt Rose. And then my Uncle John and my Uncle Hugh are off the frame. This photograph was taken about 1922. How do I know that? Because Uncle Tommy can't be more than 2 years old in this picture. And there's a great family story that goes around about my grandpa. He was always a prankster, and he loved to see the humor in things. This photograph was taken on a trip that they were taking to California. And he had the 4 kids, my grandma and him, and they're headed to California from Fort Worth, Texas to see her first cousin. And in those days, that road to California was 2 ruts. If you met somebody coming the other way, somebody had to move over so the other one could go by. If you've seen a cow, going down to somebody's pasture, that's what the road to California looked like. And my grandmother, being who she was, she would pack pickles and sardines and cheese and crackers and all kinds of stuff because there weren't road places to stop all around the way. And I always think of the trip. You remember the Grapes of Wrath movie with Henry Fonda and the truck all packed up? I got to believe that's kind of what it looked like when they were headed out there. Anyway, at some point in the trip, my grandpa, they stop at a roadside, or on the side of the road, and he's trying to give the boys something to do, and he gives them a few gumdrops, each one of them. And he told them, you can have a few of them, but if you'll plant one of them here on the side of the road, when we come back from California, there should be a gumdrop jelly bean tree growing. So they ate their jelly beans, and they were all excited, and they all planted their little jelly bean in the sand. My grandmother loved telling this story, by the way. And of course, they come back 3 weeks later, and to the horror of my 2-year-old Uncle Tommy, there was no jelly bean tree growing. I don't think he ever got over that. And the reason I bring that story up, because I'm going to come back to that story. But in the meantime, has anybody here ever been hungry? Oh, yeah. I'm not talking about, I hadn't eaten since breakfast, I want a hamburger tonight. I'm talking about hunger. You remember when Fred Disney, some of you were here when Fred Disney spoke. He was a prisoner of war in a World War II German prison camp. And he talked about hunger. Something I have never experienced at that level. Maybe some of you have, but I would say in this country it's not happened in a long time. But I want to imprint this into your minds. Think about the long lines you've seen on those pictures of Europe in World War II with the people lined up. You can see their breath in these black and white pictures, and they're getting a little crust of bread and a ladle of slop put in a tin can. I want to burn in your minds as well the prison camps when the Allies came into Germany and saw what was in the concentration camps, what was left of the people who were still alive. I want to burn those in your mind because we have a government today that's setting us up in relation to our food supply to make it even worse than it was then. Why is that? And this is a new talk for me, so I'm gonna use a crutch with my notes, so I hope you will bear with me. Because of centralized farming, centralized government controls, government subsidies, and an ever-shrinking supply of good experienced farmers and food producers, and a shrinking number of the people who are giving us our food. Cargill, Monsanto, DuPont, some of the big ag people. So, what does that have to do with anything? Where am I headed with this? Well, I want to talk a minute about cheese. Parmigiano Reggiano. If you look over there, you'll see a wheel of it. It's real interesting because this cheese has been made for 1,000 years in Italy. And this is a replica of a Parma prosciutto. It's a ham. And the beautiful thing about this It's a 1,000-year-old system that they developed in Italy, where the dairymen and the cheesemakers learned to make this Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, and then their neighbors, who were the hog farmers, they figured out that that was the whey that was a byproduct of making cheese was really good for the hogs. And so they developed this system 1,000 years ago that's still in use today. These still are great cheeses today. They haven't ever improved on them. And it was developed by the farmers and the dairymen, i.e. the people. And I put this on there because they did it. They managed to figure all this out without any government interference. Now, I'm gonna jump. It's gonna feel like I'm jumping around, but just ride with me a little bit. Okay, let's talk about the Constitution for a second. This document was developed in the 18th century at a time when most of the people were under a tyrannical government, most of them monarchy. In those days, it was definitely the few haves and the many have-nots. This document was written, I have no doubt in my mind, in a moment of divine inspiration. And we must read the Constitution. The first 3 words is we the people. That's us. We the people. And if you read the Constitution in conjunction with the Declaration of Independence, you will see, and you've all heard this and you've all read it, we hold these truths to be self-evident. They didn't even think it was anything to argue about in those days. That all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator, not the government, by their Creator, God or whoever you choose, your higher power, with certain unalienable rights, and that was rights that were given to them by God, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To this day, in my opinion, we have not improved on these ideas, and we have not improved on what's written in the Constitution. We have strayed a long way away from it, but we have not improved on the ideas and the thoughts that are in those documents. If you hear someone speak to you that this document right here is living and breathing, or it's that was then and this is now, they want your rights. They are coming after your rights when they say that. So if you read the Constitution and you study it, and we've talked about that in our classes, look at it in conjunction with a book here. This is called The Law. It's written by Frederick Bastiat, and I urge everyone to read this book. He was a 19th century writer that recognized that one of the greatest threats to liberty, i.e. the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness side of liberty, was government. Even Ronald Reagan recognized this when he said in his famous quote, "Government cannot fix the problem. Government is the problem." Have you ever noticed how utterly sincere, utterly compassionate, utterly into it that a liberal is about spending your money? Of course, they don't think of it this way. I spoke with one at my farmer's market last week. And she said something, well, the government needs to take care of those people. Well, the government is the jelly bean tree that they think exists. They still, to this day, think there's a magic jelly bean tree. We've got them sitting right up here at the county commissioner's court. Now, getting back to Frederick Bastiat, this is a very important idea that he puts forth in his book, and the book is kind of short. It's not a big, heavy, long-winded read. You can read it in one evening. But he says, see it, and this is an economic principle, see if the law takes from some persons what belongs to them and gives it to another person to whom it does not belong. See if the law benefits one citizen at the expense of another by doing what the citizen couldn't do without committing a crime. Bastiat also goes on to explain that we have three choices because we look at our government as legal plunder. He describes government taxation, for instance, as legal plunder. And he says there are three choices regarding legal plunder. One, the few plunder the many. Limited plunder. Two, everybody plunders everybody. Or three, nobody plunders anybody. So how many think we're at number 3 today? No. How many think we're somewhere in here? The last option, by the way, I would like to say, I would like to say this is probably what we would call today a free market. Can you guys think of an example, anybody here, of an example of everybody's plundering everybody?
Taxes.
Obamacare.
Good, we got it going. Anybody else?
Communism in general.
Food stamps, unemployment, Social Security benefits, and don't get too, I know we put into that one. Free medical care, free schooling, free housing, government contracts, government jobs. They are all taken from the pot. Of course, where does this money come from? The magic jelly bean tree. They've done spent our taxes a long time ago. So, just want to show you a few statistics just to kind of help bolster what I'm talking about. This first statistic is the current U.S. population. This is according to the U.S. Census about last year. 319 million. This is from Fox News. I don't know how reliable it is, so I'll make that disclaimer. Those who receive government assistance, 110 million. And that's all these things that I just talked about. This one here is a very important number because these are the people who are employed by the government. 24 million. And you do the math. I didn't do the calculation. This does not include, by the way, the contractors hired by the government, which there's a growing body of contractors that are being hired by the government. I don't know what, anybody have any idea on that one? Because I don't. I'll add that to it as we go. As you can see, we're not far from the tipping point. We're not far. And I don't know, with floodgates open with the borders, and with our current president basically letting everybody in they can let in, I don't know how long it's going to be before this is what would that be? 160 nearly over 319. We're not far. Now I've got something here I just can't let go. And I'm going to go back to, and I'm sorry, you're just going to have to bear with me. But I'm going to give you an example of the few plundering the many, right here in Granbury.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I stood right here 3 years ago and gave a piece of this presentation before the referendum that was voted on in November 2012. And I heard crickets out here. But I'm going to go over this again. Because, by the way, I drove out there today, and they don't even have a slab poured yet. But I don't want to, don't want to get on anybody here. How this even got on the ballot baffles me. But But I've gotten a story from one of our county commissioners as to how it happened. And I'm going to share it with you to see if it sounds plausible. But supposedly some folks at the YMCA were disenchanted with the current YMCA. They decided that, hey, why don't we get a new YMCA? And we just had a gold medalist in the Olympics in 2012, and we need a big swimming pool for our Olympians. We need to develop more Olympians in Hood County. We had a lot of emotion going on. And we had a Greater Fort Worth YMCA, $26 million nonprofit entity, by the way. I went and looked at their 990 form. The five top, I don't want to go too far off track here. The 5 top executives, this was my Just Say No presentation I did 3 years ago. Set the top 5 employees for this YMCA right here, $738,000 for 5 salaries. But it's nonprofit.
That's why it's nonprofit.
They pulled out all the stops. The YMCA.
I was just going to tell you too, I'm a member at the Y, and if it's nonprofit, I think it was in January, they just raised our dues too. They just raised our dues.
She's
and
just
it's
throwing
not
coal on the
cheap.
fire, isn't she?
I'm good at that.
But I want to get this burned into your minds. Please think about this.
What did she say, Dave?
She said that their dues just went up. And they hadn't even moved yet, right?
Right, we're still in the...
Well, they're trying to save some money up for this. 52,000 is the population according to the 2012 census, or 13, somewhere in there. This is from the YMCA's brochures that they were passing around. 4,229 people used the YMCA in a given year. That was their number. And yet, 92% of us voted for 8% to have a Y to go swimming in. I love the Y. But I don't want, you pay, if you want to go to the Y, you pay for it.
Right.
That's kind of simple, isn't it? Unfortunately, we've already been signed up for it.
Yep.
And a parking lot, and an opera house, and a restaurant. How many more businesses has this anyway? So this brings me to my third book, my third piece of literature that I would like to suggest that you guys take a look at in your spare time, sometime when you're drinking a cup of coffee on a Sunday morning or Saturday night or whatever. And that's a book called Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. And he wrote, this book was written in 1946, so it's been around. And he is a follower of the Ludwig von Mises Austrian School of Economics, which states in one little sentence, you can't run a government any different than you run your house. That's what they think. Well, we have been brainwashed for 50, 60 years that Keynesian economics, that a magic jelly bean exists, tree, and that's how government works, and all that means is that they just keep printing more money and bringing up the taxes. But, not to get too far off, the art of economics consists in looking not merely at the immediate, but at the longer effects of any act or policy, A, and B, it consists in tracing the consequences of that policy, not merely for the group, YMCA, but for all groups, everybody in the county. Because when you take money from over here to give it over there, there's a net loss on this side and a net gain on that side. And the whole idea of economics in one easy lesson is that people were always presented with the bond issue, which is, by the way, a bond means we're borrowing money. It's a note where they sign us off as taxpayers. It's like a mortgage or a car note or whatever you want to call it. But what the point is that they always show you the immediate effects of what they're going to do with that money and all the great things that are going to happen. What you can't see, and this is what this book warns you about and asks you to look at, is try to think of all the the whole group, the whole picture, and the effects it's going to have in the long run. Short-term, small group, sell you a bond issue. Long-term, everybody, and it may not be that great. Oh, by the way, sorry. They claim it's going to be paid for in 10 years. Come on, you believe that? It'll never be paid for. In 10 years, they're going to need they're going to have to redo the swimming pool. They'll start all over again. And we got so much money in it now. I'm a sailor from way back. I don't have a boat now. But a sailboat is what sailors we call the hole in the water where we poured all our money into. That's what a project that a county county government getting involved in this kind of project does. And who's benefiting out of this? Whoever's buddies are in the YMCA, anybody that's gotten the contract to pour slabs, to put plumbing in, and those are probably all inside deals. I'd love to look at all that. I don't have time. But I'll bet if you researched it, you would be surprised as to who's getting to do what.
Yeah.
So, Jan mentioned Bob McEwen. He's a former congressman out of Ohio. Great speaker. Funny. I mean, he was great. But to stay in line with our economics, because we're talking economics 101 tonight, this was his line, his little graph here, and it represents a line here, and for every dollar that you earn, every dollar that I earn, or you earn, how much does the government take? As you can see, the less and less the government takes, and I like his graph, I think it's very accurate, the more close we get to freedom and free market. The more and more they take, and you don't even want to know how many ways they really tax you. Yeah. At the end game of that is slavery. Taxation is a frontal assault on freedom. Sir?
Let's have a tea party.
So there's another assault on freedom in this country. You may not feel it directly, but I do as a business person, and that's regulation. That's another assault on freedom. Why? Well, let me get back to the Declaration of Independence, because the Declaration of Independence was a referendum. You know, one of those pieces of paper that aren't worth putting the words on? Remember that? Somebody we know said that? That's all it was a referendum saying this is what we're tired of you doing. But here's one of them that really hits home to me as a cheese maker and as a person who is regulated by the regulators. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. Every time a regulator goes into any business, any product or goods or services that you buy, the business person has to put that on top on the price. So you're paying for regulation. It's an indirect tax that you never understand that you have that's happening to you. Another assault on freedom. So I'm getting to the end. I had a 40-minute one, but I've been trying to kind of get through it. And I'm going to talk about something that's near and dear to me now that I'm on this little subject. The FDA is currently my regulatory authority. Does the FDA have any clue about the cheese business? No. Does the FDA have any clue about the dairy business? No. What the FDA knows how to do is regulate. They know how to make you fill out paperwork. They know how to go do this under your counter and say, oh, I found some sort of pathogen there. Everybody remembers the Wizard of Oz, right? Okay. The FDA is the flying monkeys that big dairy sends out, or big pharmaceuticals, to stamp out the hay that's of the scarecrow of the little guy. That's what they do. Anybody here ever heard of Leprino Foods? Leprino. Mike Leprino came to this country in the early 1900s, and he started a cheese business in Denver, Colorado. is kind of like my little business, about 1,000 square feet, and he was an Italian guy that knew how to make mozzarella and provolone, and he started making this great cheese, and it's evolved. American Dream, it's one of the largest family-held food manufacturers in the world now, commodity cheesemakers. And I call them Big Dairy and Big Cheese. Now, there's an attack on us small dairy people and small cheesemakers. I know you don't know that, but there is a frontal attack happening to us to get rid of us because we're perceived as a threat to Leprino Foods. How do I know this? Let me count the ways. Sorry. John Sheehan is the current head of dairy safety with the FDA. Guess where he was employed prior to his government stint? Monica Metz is directly under John Sheehan, and she's the one last year that told us we're not supposed to age cheese on wood anymore. She sent out this edict that she decided we're not going to be able to age cheese on wood anymore, which cheese has been aged on wood for 8,000 years.
Yeah.
Guess where she used to work? Leprino Foods. When they're through with the FDA, guess where they're going to get to go back? Leprino Foods. One last one, and then I'm going to start winding this up. Michael Taylor is the current FDA czar. They call themselves czar. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I know.
C-Z-A-R. He's above all of them. And guess where he was employed?
Monsanto.
What?
Monsanto.
Monsanto. He was an attorney who helped the dairy industry develop a growth hormone called RBST, which they inject into cows. It makes them give out more milk. No, makes them give out more water in the milk. And if my dairyman, if he took a hose and poured it into his dairy tank and they caught him, he would get his permit pulled. But if you inject something into a cow to make them keep the water in the milk, that's okay. He was also the attorney. He was with the USDA before his stint with the FDA, who developed the language in genetically modified crops that says it's substantially similar, which is a legal term of art, as you know. Therefore, you don't have to label it. Well, you know, it's the same as the real thing. Although there's a growing body of evidence now that's saying it may not be. So if the artisan cheese industry, which is my industry, is an example of what happens in many other industries, why do they worry about us? We got 1% of the market, maybe 1%. I'll tell you why they worry about us. Because if we double our industry, now we've got 2%. So we can double it, still only have 2%. But they see they cannot touch what we do, quality-wise. So, I guess what I'm saying is, I'm asking you to support your local business people and support your local purveyors of food. We need to keep the money in Hood County. We need to support each other. And I will conclude with this. We need to take back our local government. We saw a good example of that at this Commissioners Court meeting. That was a full house. And I got to see things that I didn't realize how bad it is. I mean, we've got folks that have run in this county, and they've come to the close to election time. They've walked in here and they've walked in the Republican Party headquarters, and they've asked to speak, and they've joined in and hugged and all that kind of stuff. And they said they've got an R behind their name. But let me tell you something. When they get elected, they take that R down and there's a D on it. Don't you? I mean, I've seen it. I saw it with this Commissioners Court meeting. Take back your local government. We got to run candidates of limited government and look out for spending my money and your money on boondoggles. take back our local economies. I talked about buying, you know, we need to support our local business people. Buy some, there's a good cheesemaker in town. Really good cheesemaker. And he's gotten, his cheese company has actually gotten some international recognition. And but my cheese, our cheese is high at the cash register. You go, oh man, wow, that cheese is expensive. Well, guess what? I don't get subsidized. The government, see, when they subsidize something, they're taking it out of your pocket. You just don't know it. I don't get that. My cheese, everything that I do with my cheese business comes out of my pocket, buy, sell. I've got to make a profit, and I've got to figure out how to do that with what I've got to work with. And that leads into this. Remember when we talked about the hunger idea? We have to take back our food supply.
Yep.
You don't know how critical this is.
Yes, it is.
I'm in the food business, and I see what they're doing to us. Our congressman today, I'll bet you $50. I'll bet you the House today voted for House Bill 1599, which is a bill that Congressman Conaway jumped in on the bandwagon on July the 15th, just last week, as a co-sponsor. And we confronted him at the last, Jim and I confronted him at the last meeting at the
Chamber of Commerce.
Where was it?
Chamber.
At the Plantation.
It was Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce. And it's the same paradigm. Country of origin labeling, gone. They don't want us to know where our meat comes from, if it comes from Canada, Mexico, wherever. They've stricken that rule about country of origin labeling. So I'm going to finish with this. I got some other stuff, but I need to break this down into modules I can tell now.
I found your amount that people spend on regulation every year, $14,678.
Who does?
Is what regulations cost us.
Who? Each
individual. Each individual.
Say that again.
$14,678 per individual is what the cost of government is, the cost of regulations. And the attitude of government, he said, was if it is not broken, fix it till it is.
Your House bill?
So how are we going to do this?
Your House Bill 1599? It failed.
All right!
87 to 337.
337 voted against it.
Yeah.
Your congressman was a co-sponsor of that bill. He's the head of the agricultural committee, and so far he's been in there so long. And I like Mike as a sit down and talk to him, but he needs to go.
That's Conaway, not Lang.
Lang needs to come. So how are we going to do this? Well, I've got some friends that I meet for coffee sometimes in the morning. They're all well-to-do, retired, and they're conservative, gripers about everything. And I try to get them involved, and you know what? They're just disconnected. These people are stealing us blind, and everybody's sitting back letting it go, letting it happen. You need to educate yourself. I would suggest, and I brought some extras, that if you will just read these 3 items, the law, economics in one lesson, and the U.S. Constitution, just these 3, start here. If you will read these 3 documents and study them and understand them, you'll know more than 95% of the people that are elected in any office anywhere right now. Just these. And not just give them lip service, but actually read them and kind of start thinking about it. One of the things we want to do here is we want to have classes where, I hate to call them classes, but workshops, where you can come and we can talk about this stuff. Jim's conducting a great workshop now over the 5,000 year leap, which talks about all these documents and more. So, I'm going to leave you with this, and I'm sorry I took so much time, but I want you to really, 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 really think about this. America is like a healthy body. Okay, sorry, body. And its resistance is threefold. It's patriotism. This was an afterthought that I put in here. It's morality, and it's spiritual life. Let's keep going. If we can undermine these three areas, America will collapse from within. Joseph Stalin. Thank you for putting up with me. I appreciate it. And I thank you, John, for being great. I'll turn it back over to you. And I got these for $10 for all three.
Dave, I was gonna put a plug in for C&J Butcher as far as more wholesome food.
C&J Butcher, a little small butcher shop over there. It's a great place, and he carries our cheese.
Hey, can we hear a little more about the Commissioners Court meeting that you said was a disaster yesterday?
Y'all want to hear about the Commissioners Court meeting a little bit more?
Yes. Yeah. Go right ahead.
I said it was a disaster back there. That's not true. It was not a disaster for us. I think it may be in the long haul. Remember I said don't look at the short-term effects on one group, look at the long-term effects for every group? I think in the long haul, this Commissioners Court meeting is going to be a tar baby for many people that are sitting up there right now. They've shown their true colors. They've got people looking at them. They don't like that. I've heard one of them comment, just let me do my job. And that's the problem. They have their job to do, I agree. I don't have a problem with that. But my job and your job is to make sure they're doing their job. And if we're sit back here and don't get involved and don't go see what these guys are doing, they're going to keep stealing it blind. They're going to keep just, here's the one on the horizon. Has anybody heard about the little airport venture that's coming in? We got a proposal for a $20 million airport renovation because we need an international airport here. In Granbury? In Granbury, Texas. That's the next boondoggle they're going to try to sell us on. And we either just shut up and lay back and let them just keep doing this, or we finally say no to it. There are so many places they waste money in this, in just our county. We can't do much about Washington, but we can do something about the county. In the Commissioners Court meeting, I think we learned a whole lot of things about it. I learned how to do a open records request to the county, because I had never, as an attorney, I had never done that. So I got to learn that, and I got to learn a lot of stuff about how the Keystone cops operate up there when they're under stress, and they are under some stress right now.
Yeah, they are.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Dave. And so along those lines, one of the things that, if you guys kind of followed this a little bit, the Hood County News was instrumental in kind of biasing the reporting on that.
No.
And so one of the things that I put together with the help of a couple of the board members was an editorial response that I submitted back to them today. So I've passed that out. You guys are free to read it. I don't know that they'll publish it, but if you guys want to hand it out and put some pressure on them, by all means. Because what it is they didn't interview anybody that opposed this. And the way that they slanted the reporting made it sound like that the vast majority of the county supported the librarian, which was not the case. At least from what we saw in attendance at the County Commissioners Court. So it's up to us to stay engaged and stay active. And really what it highlighted is what Dave said. The fact that the County Commissioners Court, we're so focused on things are way out of control in Washington, D.C., guess what? We think it's all stable and nice here in Hood County. There's lots of things that we need to get straightened out here in Hood County or in the city of Granbury. So participation locally, we can hold them accountable, then that starts cascading upwards instead of trying to start at the federal level where we don't have much influence. So take a look at that. I welcome any feedback on the editorial, and that's the other thing. So when you're starting looking at ways to get active, communication with the newspaper, with the radio stations, things like that, are very, very important to stay out there in front of issues. With that, I want to turn it over to Donna, because one of the things... Donna, go ahead.
I forgot, we've got books over on the window ledge over there that we brought, and they're free. I mean, if you'd like to go through them and take them home with you and read them, that's great. And we'd like them to be circulated around. There's all kinds of good reading material there, so y'all help yourself to it.
I think you had a little announcement in regards to that.
Yeah, just, feel free to keep them, give them to your family, give them to your friends, and we were kind of talking about just sharing with each other if you have books that you want to bring in. But whoever, if you bring a book and it doesn't get taken, take it home.
Don't worry for one. Yeah. One other thing, and I'm going to throw this out there. I've had quite a few people either call or ask me if I would run for the commissioner seat. And so what I would ask is for y'all's input. We'll see.
Was that pretty clear, Don?
Yeah.
Was the input clear?
Good start.
It's a good start. Okay. All right. And so one of the things that we talked about was activism, and in the classes that, or the workshops that we do, I really kind of talked about the happy warrior activist. And one of the things that even Jim Thompson had noticed was how much Donna had become almost the face of a happy warrior activist. So I asked her tonight to come up and kind of give some insight into some things that she's learned in terms of outreach with the politicians and things like that, because she's really, from when I first got here to now, she threw some questions at Conway when we met at the Chamber of Commerce meeting. She's reaching out to all the different officials. So I want to have her give some insight, and that's what I'm hoping to get everyone to do going forward. So, you go.
I'll try if I can use my teacher voice. Is this loud enough?
No.
Okay. All right, Jim asked me to share with you some ways to get involved in our political process, and most of them won't cost you any money, so I think that's kind of a cool thing. I'll give you 5 of them because I know we're tired and it's late. I keep a current list of phone numbers and addresses of my federal and my state representatives. And that way when I read something in the newspaper or online or I hear something, I know exactly who I need to contact, and I have my little check-off list. If it's Cruz and Cornyn, I call them and I check it off my list, and I let them know in very articulate terms how I feel about the issue. I can call their Washington office and get a recording, and I have no problem with that. Or I can call their local office, and I've done that with some of the state representatives as well, and it's really cool to get to know the people in these local offices, and I think they appreciate when I remember their name. Even Jim Keffer's assistant, his name was Worth, and when I called him back, I make a note of his name, and when I call back and I ask if it's Worth, and he seems very pleased and surprised, and they'll give you the time of day. And I know they have a tally sheet, and when I tell them how I feel about an issue, I know it's going to be yay or nay, but I also can give them more information as well. Don Meisinger is holding up the pamphlet that he's given out that's got email addresses.
Right, and some phone numbers. Yeah,
so it's good.
Little brochure.
I just have mine, and I actually keep a journal. When I talk to them, I write the day that I call them and what I talk to them about. And they say, do you want us to get back to you? And I say, sure. And do they want my address? I give them anything they want. Jim thinks we're going to be audited too, but anyway, so that's okay. But by going online, something else I did with, especially with Mike Conway, before we went to see him at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon, I went online because I didn't know a lot about him. I read his bio. Of course, a lot of this is his word, but it's good to know. I know how many grandkids he's got, and I know where he goes to church, he's a deacon, I know this kind of stuff, and I think it helps you to know where a person's coming from if you know who they are, even if it's their definition. Then you can go online and you can see the bills that they have either sponsored or initiated, and you know what things they're involved with, and you can push your agenda if you need to, or compliment what they're doing. So I found that important to go online and do a little homework. I had to do a lot of homework about that crazy free trade thing because it was so convoluted with all the different acronyms. But by the time I'd done my homework, I felt prepared to ask him a question in an intelligent way, so he didn't think I was saying he just picked up a newspaper article. Let's see. I've also found it very beneficial to be as polite and respectful as possible when I'm talking to these people, these staffers. And Jim has taught us, Jim Logan has reminded us to be happy warriors, and I love that because I think you're going to get a lot more done with that attitude rather than coming in and you can totally shut down a discussion if you come in raving and using awful language. It's just a better idea to go in as a happy warrior. Okay, 2. Another way to take action is to become a volunteer deputy registrar. You can contact Cricket Miller right here in Hood County, and she gives a class every month. I'm not sure about the summer, but every other month, she gives a class on how to become a registrar. And you can take these voter registration forms. It takes you about 30 minutes to do the training. You can take these forms. I've talked with my pastor already, and he's going to let me set this up in the entryway of our church. And I'll tell you why that's important. When we went to this summit, and thank you, Jan, so much for that summary. That was awesome. We got some stats from a group called Restore America. It's a 501c3 organization designed to turn out the Christian vote. It showed us the very sad facts that evangelical voters simply failed to show up in both the 2008 election and the 2012 election. That in the 2008 election, Barack Obama's margin of victory was only 2%. And it's terrible. When you see, I'll give you a couple of stats. Evangelical voters were 24% of the electorate in 2008, so about a quarter of the voters. 79% of these voters voted for Romney, yay. 20% voted for Obama, the most anti-biblical, pro-abortion, and pro-gay president in history. 20% of evangelicals. I don't know if they don't get it, if they didn't know, or they've always voted Democrat. I don't know what the problem was, but they're not what I call informed voters.
Exactly.
We could easily have seen a much different outcome in both elections if Christians and evangelicals had shown up at the polls. And 3, let me do 3. Also at the summit, there were many opportunities presented for us to become involved. They had tables set up with a number of organizations. One that I picked up on was called Salt and Light Citizenship Ministries. And I picked up their newsletter, and once I got it home and read it, I found gold. Because what they did was they highlighted several articles that are issues that are very timely. They give you an action, who to contact, whether it's a chief justice, whether it's signing a petition, but they give you an action item, and they even go so far as to tell you what you can say to that person. Now, I went ahead and wrote 3 letters as a result of some of these articles and got them in the mail, and then I talked with a lady from Salt and Light Citizenship Ministry. And what she told me was that you do not want to send letters to these elected officials. You want to send postcards. And I hadn't thought about it, but when you send a letter, that's got to go through legal. And I'm sure it's going to go through security for obvious reasons. There are crazy people who send letters that don't have letters in them. And so send a postcard. It costs less money. I think it's 34 cents. You can write your view, get it right to that person. And I want to give you, if you'll bear with me, I want to give you one example. And this was actually, this example was talked about at the summit. There was a Lance Corporal, Monica Sterling. She faced criminal prosecution and was court-martialed for displaying a Bible verse on her computer. She lost the battle with the U.S. government and then an appeal in the Navy Marine Corps Court of Criminal Appeals. Liberty Institute, which had a representative at the summit, was representing her. They teamed up to make an appeal for this lady to get her job back. They said it's injustice of failing to protect her religious freedom as well as the precedent-setting nature of this case. So they gave us the contact, the person, his address, and the suggested language to use, which I wrote a letter, so we'll get to him sometime. But I learned that the best way is to send a postcard, take action. Don't just sit there and wring your hands and say, this makes me angry. I'm frustrated about this, because it does nobody any good. It makes you really more miserable. One of the closest chapters of this Salt and Light Citizenship Ministry is in Cisco. They meet monthly, which is a little bit of a drive for some of us. But when I talked to the lady at the table there on Friday, she said that you can start one in Granbury with no problem. You need a pastor and you need someone from a church to be the point person. You can meet once a month. You take about 1 hour to prepare a lesson, and there are all kinds of lessons, plus you get this incredible newsletter, which we can't get if we're not part of this group. And I tell you, it's extremely valuable. But we've talked about in this Tea Party meeting, how do we get younger people involved? There's even a Salt and Light Citizenship Ministry for youth. So they could come into your church and they could talk to your young people about being involved, about the Constitution, about our rights. And I just see it as a huge opportunity. The fourth thing I want to mention is the candidate kitties. They're right up here in front of me. And what we're doing is we're collecting money to give to someone who's running for office to encourage them. You can put a ton of money in there and give it all to one person, or what we choose to do is we give pretty regularly to a number of people, because I want to encourage so many people that I feel like share our values. Fifth, the last thing. You can take an online course titled Constitution 101 from Hillside College. This course is Hillsdale, sorry, it says Hillsdale. Hillsdale College. It's a 10-course lesson. It has about 35 to 45-minute lectures with each module. There's a Q&A with the presenter. There's a quiz that you take, and then there are the documents that would go along with that lesson, whether it's Washington's farewell address, or the Constitution, or the Articles of Confederation. But it's so awesome because it's like taking your own civics class, and you go at your pace. There's no charge. You go at your own pace, and I'm on lesson 6 right now, and I'm loving it because it goes very well with what we're learning in our Liberty Project classes with Jim. It really, it makes me so appreciative of what our founders sacrificed, and the what I believe, and I think Dave referred to it, was the inspiration. It had to be divinely inspired. The documents and the wording and the research that they did and what they came up with, it's not humanly possible. And this is an amazing experiment, and it's not happening in any other country in the world. And we're letting it slip through our fingers, I do. I've got the address for you to sign up for the Hillsdale College course. I've got lots of information if you're interested in any of these areas, but just to give you an idea, these are just things that I've run across, and I know y'all have found a lot of things as well. I would just leave you with this. If you think our ship is sinking, I challenge you to grab a bucket and start bailing water. And I thank you for your time.
All right, and one last thing. I think also Don Messinger was working on the Christian voters registration, and so I wanted to kind of give him a shout out that if you're interested in working with your local church, it kind of dovetails along with the Christian Value Summit. He's got some information already set up to try to start working with outreach to get more people of the Christian faith registered to vote, and that kind of kicks off getting them educated on what the issues are as well. So by all means, reach out to Don and check with that. But with that, I think that's pretty full evening. I'll open up for any last minute questions or anything like that. If there are any questions at all? If not, yeah, go ahead.
Not a question, just a comment. I love
sure.
What the woman just said here a minute ago. That was fantastic to get people involved. I just had one little comment, and And that is, she said to leave an articulate message, and I would disagree with that, as long as it's coherent. Because I think when some people hear the word articulate, they might be a little intimidated. They have never called Congress. They might be a little scared. They've got to sound like an attorney. And I think that as long as you give a coherent message and give your opinion, because they're primarily just doing tallies, I think it's a great idea. I mean, don't be intimidated to call that. I don't think you have to be that articulate to say something.
Fair enough point. So just the act of reaching out and calling your representative, do you guys know how many people it actually takes per hour to calling to shut down their office? 12. So if 12 people are calling within an hour, that shuts down their phone system. You know what happens when that happens? They kind of start panicking. Because if they figure 12 people in an hour are calling them, then there's about 100 people that aren't calling them that are probably thinking the same thing. So when you start getting active and you start calling and participating, they start paying attention. So, and it doesn't take a whole lot of people calling to get them to pay attention at this point. So, anything else? Yes, sir.
Would you allow me to lead us in that chorus of God Bless America?
Oh, most definitely. I'll close it out with that. All right, very good.
What do you think? Can we stand for this one?
Yeah, let's do it.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean